guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Bree if you are new here, and in today's video I just want to do a shop my stash, life update, chit chat, get ready with me, content update. So if you guys are interested in hanging out, doing some makeup, chatting, then just keep on watching. Alright, as per usual with these videos, everything that I use is going to be linked down below because I'm going to be, it's obviously a makeup video, but I'm going to be talking, so I'm not going to like interrupt myself to like be like, oh, this is what I'm using. I'll just have everything listed down below. With my palette and stuff like that, I'll show you what I use at the end because, again, as per usual with these videos, I'm going in with absolutely no plan whatsoever. Not a single plan. So let's just go ahead and jump on in. First wanted to touch base regarding my content as I stare at this palette and decide what it is that I want to do. So I know that I had mentioned in my last Shop My Stash video, which I will have linked up in the eye and down below for you guys. In my last Shop My Stash video, I was like, oh, like I'm not doing 13 looks of Halloween, but I'm gonna have a Halloween look for you guys every single Tuesday. So it would have been 4. And it'll be great and blah, blah, blah. And that didn't happen, obviously, considering it is now November, and that did not happen. You know, a lot of life happened all at once. I had mentioned previously that I was struggling to find time to do those more intricate Halloween looks that maybe are like, you know, especially when you're filming in like September and like early October, like those kinds of looks where you're like, people don't really need to see me wearing this quite yet, you know? So I was having a hard time finding the time to do that with like working around therapy and stuff like that. And there was a day, Friday, that I was off and I was getting like, had my whole to-do list ready to go. I was gonna film my vampire makeup look that I had planned and it was gonna be great, and I was, you know, gonna clean the whole fucking house and everything like that. And I wake up at 7:45 in the morning to my mom calling me, which again, I work with my husband and we both work for my parents. So 7:45, I get a call from my mom, and I was asleep. So it was like one of those, like, you know, you get woken up and you're like, oh God, where am I? Kind of wake ups. And she was like, I'm so sorry. I need you to come into work. I'm really sick. Like, she was, you know, she had food poisoning. Which, first of all, fucking great old time for my OCD, you know, my fear of food contamination, fear of throwing up, fear of getting sick. OCD was a really great time for me. But of course I'm not going to be like, no mom, fuck you, I'm not coming in. So obviously I went in. And then I ended up switching around like the schedule for the following day. So Saturday, so I ended up opening that day. And Sunday, I always work on Sundays. And it ended up, she's fine by the way, she's great. It ended up working out that I was going to just take an extra day off the following week. So I was going to have Monday off, Tuesday, which would have been my therapy day, and then I was going to also have like Friday off or whatever. Monday, like Sunday night comes rolling around, and I was getting ready to like plan my day because I really like to plan my day. How long am I going to spend blending out this one eyeshadow? I really like to like write to-do lists and plan out my day and everything, because otherwise I will forget things and I will not do things and stuff like that. And so I was getting ready to do that. Had some other stuff come up where I was just like, you know what, I'm not filming tomorrow. Like, or well, no, it wasn't even that I said I wasn't filming. It was just that I was just like, I don't think that I'm going to film. We'll kind of see how the morning plays out, but I had some stuff that I had to deal with in the morning and I wasn't sure if it was gonna happen. Monday morning rolls around and I, you know, get everything that I needed to get done sorted out pretty early in the morning. So it wasn't a big deal, and I was like, okay, well, as soon as Chris leaves for work, I'll film. No problem. I'll just have everything ready to go. As the morning progresses, I get the worst fucking cramps. Oh my God, the worst fucking cramps. I almost passed out. I almost threw up. Like, it was really, really, really bad. So I went from being curled up on this couch to I went and laid down in the bed, and that was probably like 9:30 in the morning or something like that. Went and laid down in bed, ended up falling asleep. It was just kind of like a way to, I guess, avoid the pain. Got up when my husband went to get up for work, and I was like, well, guess I'm not filming today. And I kind of toyed around with the idea of filming on Friday, which would have been, yeah, it would have been an incredibly short turnaround, like film on Friday, have the video up on Tuesday kind of thing. So I was already falling very behind. And I kind of just ended up deciding, like, you know what? No, it's not that big of a deal. I need to put like my own body and my own like mental health and shit first. So I decided to not do. Originally I was just gonna skip out on that video, and then I was like, you know what, fuck it. I was already at that point just really over it, and I kind of just said, fuck it, I'm gonna take a couple days, regroup, function my brain a little bit, because I was still really like on edge with my mom getting sick. Not like, I mean, obviously concerned for her, but not like concerned for, I'm talking like, when I say on edge, I'm talking like over-exaggerated OCD reaction is what I mean by that. So yeah, really, really long-winded way of saying life got in the way, and I decided to say fuck it, and I decided not to do the last 2 Halloween videos. I just didn't want to, pretty much. I got to a point where I just decided I didn't want to. And this is kind of, honestly, it's something that I go back and forth on every year that I have done this. The first 2 years, like, it's a lot of work, and it's a lot of extra work and a lot of extra planning, and it takes a lot out of me physically and mentally and creatively. So this was the first year that I cut back, and then I just like really cut back. So yeah, my apologies if you were like really looking forward to those videos. I am so sorry. So yeah, basically all of that to say, in terms of content, I am back on track, back on schedule. I am still, in my mind, which I'm trying to like get adjusted to that, because I would like to be filming and editing, like, well, filming particularly. Editing I always fucking put off until the very last minute. I would like to be filming a little bit closer to when I'm actually putting up the content, which can get a little bit stressful, but I would rather like be a little bit closer to the time that I'm actually putting up this video than being like a month or 2 in advance. So in terms of content, I am back on schedule, back on track. You guys are seeing this right at the beginning of November. Hi, happy November, happy birthday month to me. And I wanted to touch base quickly on the streaming stuff that I had discussed in my last Shop My Stash video, because I do still really want to try my hand at that, give it a shot, do some like fun makeup streams or just gaming streams or whatever my heart may desire, stuff like that. So chit chat with you guys, whatever, you know. So like I said, you guys are, again, because I'm like 2 weeks ahead of myself here, week and a half ahead of myself. You guys are seeing this first week of November, very beginning of November. If everything goes according to plan, my very first stream should be November 4th. So it should be this coming up Friday. I'm leaning towards like a 12:30, 1 o'clock time. That's where I'm leaning. I will tell you right now, right out the gate, it's not going to be immediately consistent. And a big part of that is because of the fact that like there's just things happening in November that lend to me not being off on Fridays, and I would like to live stream on Fridays. So there are certain weeks this month that I'm not gonna have a Friday off. So I can't stream if I'm not off, you know? One of those is gonna be the week of the 16th because I'm gonna have my birthday off. And one of those will also be Thanksgiving week because I obviously will have Thanksgiving off, and then I'll be working on the Friday after Thanksgiving. Again, assuming everything goes according to plan, and I will have a community post up, like, confirming everything probably on, like, Wednesday or Thursday. And then hopefully kind of as time progresses and we get, like, out of the holiday season, I'll be able to be a little bit more consistent with it. Wow, really just reinvented the wheel today. Because I'm going to, before I get into like health stuff, life update stuff, everything like that, I'm going to put on my wing and like gather my base products. So let me just show you what I did for my eyes in case you're curious. I used the Colourpop Your Golden palette, and I started out with the shade Secret Spot. Went in with Saunter to deepen, Warmer Days for my outer corner. The first shimmer I put on is Balmy, and then on my inner corner is One Way. So that's that. Yeah, I'm gonna go put on a wing and grab everything for my base, and I will be right back to continue. I just put on a primer, so while I wait for that to settle in. Where to start? Where to start? Okay, so in my last Shop My Stash video, I apologized for being a little bit all over the place because that day I had, I was filming that video, and then I immediately had therapy, and then I immediately had a doctor's appointment, and then I had a lab appointment, and this and this and this. And I had said in that video that I was going to this doctor's appointment to get some fresh eyes on some pain that I had, and I had mentioned also in that video that I was seeking potential diagnosis for something, but that I didn't want to speak on it quite yet because I was not 100% sure, obviously, what was going on. Hadn't had the diagnosis yet, didn't want to speak on it if I didn't have it, obviously. So I wanted to talk about that, and also kind of just talk about some not great medical experiences that I have personally had. I'll start off with this one because this one is the most fresh, and obviously I used that one as the example to lead in. Okay, so little brief background here for anyone who hasn't seen some of my other Shop My Stash videos in particular, but I have chronic pain, pretty widespread, but also very typically localized to my neck, my shoulders, and my back, and sometimes my head if my neck is flared up really bad, but particularly my neck and my shoulders. It does flare up throughout the rest of my body with certain activities and, you know, a lot of exercise and walking and stuff like that. But that's besides the point. So I have had in the past, I think it was in like 2020, I want to say, I had a doctor's appointment for it. And I was just like, hey, oh, and my chest too. My chest, that's an important one. But, you know, I did seek some sort of medical advice for it in 2020, and I was just like, yo, like, these are my issues, what do you think, kind of thing. And at the time, the doctor, she did some x-rays and stuff, so like I'll give her that credit. She did some x-rays, kind of just basically just said like, hey, yo, your neck pain and your back pain just is, like, you can go to physical therapy for it, but it just kind of is what it is. As for the chest pain, it was the same thing that I had pretty much always been told, which is a disorder. I don't know what you would categorize it. It's just diagnosis, I guess, of chronic costochondritis, which just basically means inflammation of the joints in my chest. It's the best way that I could explain what that is it's very similar to like tennis elbow or golfer's elbow, stuff like that, where you're repeatedly moving a joint over and over and over again to the point where that joint gets irritated and it causes you a lot of pain. Same as like a carpal tunnel and like typing a lot. However, obviously, unlike tennis or golfer's elbow or even carpal tunnel, I cannot refrain from the activity that is causing my body pain, because that activity is breathing. Breathing, the movement of breathing makes my joints mad. It's great. It's great. Anyways, yeah, that's pretty much what I was told that it was, which is what I've always been told that it was. Fast forward a couple years, and I'm like, you know what? I'm finally at a place where I would like to start over again. I want to see, like, get some fresh eyes, get someone who maybe might be a little bit more experienced on the pain. So I go to this doctor's appointment and I lead out by saying, you know, I just wanted to get some fresh eyes on my pain. Like, I live, function at a 5 or a 6 on the pain scale daily. And a good day for me is like a 3 or a 4. So a good day for me is not pain-free. A good day for me is just less pain. And, you know, a flare for me will take me up to, I've had a flare take me all the way up to a 10, but a typical flare for me is, oh, there's some texture there I didn't know about. Wild. A typical flare for me will be usually about an 8 or a 9, a 7 to a 9, depending, you know. But I explained this to her, and now my mind, obviously at that point, my mind is going, I feel like regardless of anything else that a patient were to say, if I were a doctor and I heard somebody come in and say, yo, like, I live every single day in pain, I would want to help them figure that out, right? Fucking right. So I mention, I'm like, hey, like, I've done quite a bit of research on my own over the past couple years. Like, I think that it may be this thing. And I would like to be evaluated for it. I'm kind of dancing around it because I'm not quite there yet. But, you know, I say, like, I'm dancing around it with you guys, not with the doctor, obviously. And I go in with all of the diagnostic criteria of this disorder, which I just want to point out to everyone. This disorder has no treatment. This disorder has no management on it. The management is physical therapy. There can be instances where there is pain management involved, but typically you get diagnosed with this, you go to PT to learn how to live with it, and that's that. If you have the more severe variants of it, you will have treatments for those issues, obviously, but the standard mild version of this disorder is there is no treatment. So it's not something that I walked in and, like, you could mistake me for, like, drug-seeking behavior or something like that. Like, genuinely, I just wanted answers. And I'm aware that a doctor meeting me for the first time wouldn't know this, but even if, that made that worse, even if there was pain management regularly used for this, I wouldn't. It's not something that I would do. I just personally am not comfortable with it. I have a genetic history that lends me to saying, fuck no, I'm not touching that stuff, you know? So first thing out of the gate, after I mention, you know, this, is she's familiar with it, which is good, because I had brought in all of the diagnostic criteria because I had been told by another medical professional who cannot diagnose this kind of stuff, but who has gone through the diagnostic process herself for the same disorder. She told me to go in with all of the diagnostic criteria because not every doctor knows about it or is very familiar with it. So I walked in with the diagnostic criteria, like the literal medical diagnostic criteria, the actual paper that doctors use. I had it on my phone, ready to go in case it was needed. Explained to her a couple, just light, like the general, like the overarching ones. You know, I didn't get into the very specific ones, but the generalized ones. I explained to her, you know, hey, like my shoulders slip in and out of place. I'm in pain constantly, like lots of joint pain. All right, at this point I might as well just say it is. I was being evaluated for Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. It's a hypermobility disorder, joint disorder, a connective tissue disorder. Now that that's out of the way. I'm explaining like the very generalized things about it, you know, that I'm experiencing, not like the generalized criteria. First thing that she says is, well, everybody that I've ever treated that has EDS, they've already been diagnosed like way before your age. And in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, well, if this is what I have, I definitely have a very mild version of it, you know, like it's mild. But again, I wasn't seeking necessarily treatment, and I wasn't dead set on it being EDS. It was more so just it fit, and I'm familiar enough with my body to recognize those diagnostic criteria that I do fit into, even going back as far as like my childhood. An answer to why. That was all I was, that's genuinely all I care about, is just the answer to why. Why am I constantly in pain? Why do I experience these things? Why does this happen to my body? Just wanted to know why. That was it. So she does what I would only describe as the most half-assed diagnostic like process. Like, she vaguely moves my shoulders around, you know, just vaguely, just, you know, wiggling them a little bit, that kind of stuff. Vaguely moves like my wrists. That's about it. That's literally it. So she goes on to say, I don't think that it's EDS, but if you would like, I can send in a referral to the genetics department for you to get genetics testing for it, and then we'll know for sure. And I was like, cool, 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 would love to do that. And also, like, I literally said to her, I'm not dead set on it being EDS. It was just an idea, just something that I had researched that I felt like fit, but I would still like to investigate why it is that I'm constantly in fucking pain. And she genuinely like didn't say anything about that. Like, she didn't seem to be bothered or concerned or interested in the why am I in pain on a daily basis, you know, like, did not have any interest in finding out that information. They were more hung up on some other issues that I was having, that I was so easily able to just explain away. Like, this is normal for me. This is my body. This is something that it's always done. Literally one of them being my heart rate. And I was like, hey, I have an EKG appointment right after I leave your office. Like, I'm literally gonna walk down the hall and go get an EKG done. Like, if there is something wrong with my heart, they'll see it there. Y'all don't need to be stressed. This is normal for me. When I get nervous, when I get stressed, when I start walking around a bunch, my heart rate goes up and then eventually goes back down. It's pretty normal for me. So she was more hung up on that. And I'm going to say this next part. with a trigger warning for eating disorders. But I'm going to say this next part because it's going to lead into another story that I have for you guys. But at one point while she was like tweaking around my shoulder, she was like, in this exact tone, "How's your eating?" And I was like, I have a diagnosed eating disorder. It's non-body dysmorphic. It is related back to my OCD. It's well documented on my chart. I'm doing the best that I can. However, I also want to point out that my body has always been this size. I have not dramatically lost weight. And she was just like, okay. And then just kind of moved on from there. Just want to point out, by the way, in case anyone was curious, my blood work, fantastic. All came back perfectly fine. EKG, perfectly fine. Okay? Glad we're all in the same picture here. So I leave there a little bit frustrated, to say the least, but just kind of like, you know, we'll see what the genetics department says. We'll go from there. And then a couple weeks later, I want to say like 3 weeks later. So the doctor that had told me like take in the diagnostic criteria was actually my dietitian. So when I had my next appointment with my dietitian, love her so much, I was talking to her about it, and I was telling her about the appointment and everything like that, and then it kind of dawned on me. I was like, oh hey, I never heard about that referral. And she was like, oh yeah, call them when you're done. Like, just, you know, call them, check up on it. It might have gotten, you know, slipped through the cracks or whatever. So I get off the phone with her and proceed to call and be like, hey, where's my shit? Okay, I'm gonna let this dry, and I am gonna go grab my powder face products, and then we'll continue. I call and I'm like, hey, like, you know, I got this referral a couple weeks ago and I never heard back about it. Can't I just, you know, call in to get some information, right? And this is to like the general people, not specifically to the genetic department yet. So the girl is like, that's super weird. Can I put you on hold? Like, she was already in my chart, and she was saying that's super weird about something that was in my chart. And she was like, can I put you on hold for a second? And I was like, yeah, no problem. So she puts me on hold, and she comes back and she goes, yeah, my supervisor thinks that something's really weird. We're going to transfer you over to the genetics department to speak with them regarding it. And I was like, okay, cool, sure. You know, cut out the middle people. Why not? So I get over to the genetics department and I explain the whole thing once again. And the girl gets into my chart and she's just like, that's really weird. Hold on a second. And I get put on hold again. And then she comes back and she's just like, we sent over stuff for your doctor to go over with you. We're just waiting to hear back about that. And I was like, okay. And she was like, just send your doctor a message through like the web portal or whatever, and take it from there. Like, we'll go from there. And I was like, cool, no problem. Not a big deal. Maybe the doctor, you know, got busy, whatever. Trying to give everybody the benefit of the doubt here, right? So I am already a little bit annoyed. Just in general, pretty annoyed about the whole situation, right? It's been weeks. It's been 3 weeks at that point, like, and I'm having to do all of this myself because people are letting things slide. I send the doctor an email just basically being like, hey, realized, you know, I never heard back about my my genetics referral, so I was just touching base with you, blah, blah, blah. Just trying to be as like cordial and professional and nice as possible. Honestly, I was pretending like I didn't already know that the genetics department was waiting on her. That's where I was. So send that off, stew on it for a day, vent about it in therapy, you know, standard stuff. And then the next day I check my messages and I see that the lady had responded. The doctor had responded. And she tells me, I spoke with the genetics department. Okay, backtrack really quick. I just need to point out, every single time I have ever sent a message myself, initiated a message myself through the web portal, I have always been able to reply. Okay, we're gonna point that out there. I've always been able to reply. So she sends me a message that just says, I spoke with the genetics department and they said that there is no genetic testing for Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. So if you would like to proceed with a different diagnosis, I would love to see, like, we can have an appointment, basically. I'll see you back in my office kind of thing. And I was just like, and then at the very bottom it said something, I don't remember the exact wording, but it was just basically like, you can't fucking reply to this email, right? And I was like, rude of you to not let me fucking make a point, make a case for myself, but whatever. So I proceed to get on Google like normal people would do. Because first of all, where I had an issue with this was, she started out by saying that she already had patients with EDS, and implying that she is familiar with EDS, right? Right. We can all agree on that. And then says, I'm gonna refer you to the genetics department to get tested to see if you have EDS, right? I'm very vicious with this. If you're already familiar with EDS to the point where you were saying that you were going to refer me out to get testing for EDS, then how are you gonna turn the fuck back around and say, oh, there's no testing for it? That was kind of what spun around in my head, right? And I was like, there's something going on here. There's something, someone doesn't want to treat me. Personally, what I think it is that the lady, the doctor, the primary care doctor, did not like the fact that I came in with my own potential diagnosis. She didn't like that I researched and kind of armchair diagnosed myself. Again, I did not diagnose myself. I have not been walking around saying I have Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. I was merely curious about the possibility of it being EDS. That was it. I wanted a diagnosis for it. And now, mind you, I have since learned what it was that the genetics department wanted her to do. And it was the same fucking diagnostic paper that I had at the first appointment. It's a specific scale that has to do with the mobility of your joints and certain things and blah, 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 and whatever. It takes 5 minutes to do. It takes next to no time. It takes longer to check fucking blood pressure. Like, it doesn't take that long. You get where I'm going with this? It doesn't take that long. I get that message back, right? And I'm like, what am I gonna do? Obviously, this doctor does not see my complaints about my pain or my interest in this diagnosis as valid. She probably does not genuinely think that I live in that much pain constantly. It is a issue that many, if not most, chronic pain patients will tell you, is that at least one, if not more, doctors don't believe that they're actually in pain. And that excludes the doctors that can't genuinely figure out what's wrong. It is, you know, I'm talking about the doctors who genuinely believe you're either drug seeking, attention seeking, you're making it up, it's just in your head, you just have mental health problems, it's not real. A lot of chronic pain patients will tell you that they've had that experience. So I'm now like, okay, well, here we go. I have another doctor, but not another doctor. Honestly, most doctors in the past have believed me, or at least done enough of a workup to satisfy my needs at that moment. So I was like, all right, well, now I finally get my turn. I have my doctor who doesn't believe me. And so I'm like, what am I gonna do? How do I want to proceed on here? So I call the general number again, and I explain it to a lovely lady who, very sympathetic, very sweet woman. And she's just like, do you want a new primary care doctor? And I was like, yeah, absolutely, but that's not what I'm focused on right now. I'm trying to figure out why it is that the genetics department's waiting on something from this doctor, but this doctor is deciding that she doesn't want to give it to me, so I'm trying to figure out what's going on here. And I'm like, can you just transfer me to the genetics department? And the girl's like, absolutely no problem, hold on. So I get transferred over to the genetics department. I, once again, explain everything. Explain myself. Very composed, I try to be. And after a brief look at my chart and hearing just my general issues, obviously she wasn't a nurse, she was just like a receptionist or whatever, like she does the appointments kind of thing. After hearing what I had to say though, she goes, why don't I make you an appointment with our genetics doctor or geneticist over the phone, and you can discuss this with her, because she did say, and I do just want to point out, because I think I skipped over this, I did Google, there are genetics tests for EDS. There are not genetic tests for every type of EDS, particularly the type of EDS that I have, or assuming that I have, spoiler alert, but particularly the type of EDS that I present the symptoms for does not have a genetic testing for it. However, the presence of that type of EDS almost always lends to you getting genetic testing to confirm that you do not have the more serious, the more deadly variants of EDS. So she was like, why don't I make you an appointment with a genetics doctor and you guys can chit chat? And I was like, I would love that so much. Thank you so much. So fast forward to this morning. I had an appointment this morning with the genetics doctor, and I last night literally went and sat down with my iPad and researched all of the diagnostic criteria, all of the signs that you may have had this as a child, you know, all of the, you know, is this thing that I have related to EDS? Is this thing related to EDS? Blah, 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 fucking blah, okay? So I went into this phone appointment very prepared. Very fucking prepared. And also, just want to point out, went into this phone appointment a little expecting to get brushed to the side. Honestly, I did. I went into it with very low hopes. And we start to talk, and I go, let me give you the backstory, the explanation as to how I ended up here with you at this appointment. So I tell her everything I've just told you guys, just in a more condensed version, you know, didn't take me 30 minutes to fucking film version. Anyways, I explain everything. And she was like, thank you so much. And she goes, did you say that you're in pain every single day? And I was like, yes, daily. And I tell her my pain scales, my good days, my bad days, my flare days, my normal days, everything, right? Also, just want to throw out there as an aside, I'm talking about, you know, obviously my own personal pain scale. And when I say I'm living at a 5 or a 6 on a normal basis, that's my level of pain, and obviously subjective, but it's also, you know, I've gotten so used to this pain that level I can function at. And the day that I had the day after I had those really, really bad cramps last week, I had therapy, and I was telling her about it. And I was like, it dawned on me that if I function, I hit my chest, if I function at a 5 or a 6 and those cramps put me out, like literally almost fainted, I was like, that would have put a non-chronic pain person like in the hospital. And she was like, yeah, it would have. Just for fucking reference on that pain there. I explained that to the doctor. And I even mentioned to her, I'm just like, you know, myself personally, like if I were a doctor and I were to hear like someone's at a 5 or a 6 daily, I would want to investigate as to why that is. And she goes, yeah, So she asks me about my background. She asks me about my body, my issues, my pain, my joints, my everything. Literally everything. She asks me my family history. She asks me, and I'm gonna try really hard not to get emotional here. We spent almost an hour on the phone. Almost an hour with a doctor who actually took the time to listen to me and hear my concerns and ask follow-up questions when I say, oh yeah, this specific thing happens. And she would ask me, you know, does certain things trigger that? Does this happen? Does that? She would ask follow-up questions, and she actually genuinely listened to me. And it's fucking pathetic that a doctor just listening makes someone fucking emotional, because this is obviously my experience. But I've seen a lot of videos, I've seen a lot of content of people who are struggling, and they go to doctor after doctor and they get pushed to the side, and then they finally find that one fucking doctor that'll listen to them, and it breaks them. And it's so fucking emotional because you're finally getting heard, you know? And so it's fucking disgusting that I'm getting emotional over this, because it shouldn't be that way. I shouldn't have gotten pushed to the side from the get-go. I've cried enough as it is today, so I was able to kind of hold that in a little bit better, especially because, you know, I'm in the middle of doing my makeup, so it's a little bit easier to kind of reel it back in, but just give me a second. When it was all said and done, at the end of the phone call, she said, based on our conversation and based on the clinical things that I present within my own body, I think that you more than likely do have hypermobile Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, HEDS. She said that that's the one that there is no genetic testing for. However, she did say that based on some of the family history that I have an uncle who passed away pretty young, that I think part of it is just because I wasn't actually technically born yet. My mom was pregnant with me, but I wasn't born yet. I don't 100% know the details around his passing. So I wasn't super familiar with it, but again, he was pretty young. I have some other family members who did pass away pretty young on both my mom and my dad's side. She said that based on that family history, she would like to still do the genetic testing to confirm that it is not one of the other variants that could cause issues in the long run for me. But more than likely, I do clinically present with, albeit a more mild case, but still Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, hypermobile Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. I cried when she fucking said that. So that genetics testing will take about 4 to 6 weeks. I have to go get that done in a couple days. And then she goes, I'll call you with the results. And after that, she wants me to physically come into her office so she can do the last couple, like, in-person things that need to be checked. Like, she really wants to check my joints. There's some skin elasticity things that go with EDS that she wants to check on. And just, like, take a look at some scars and stuff that I have, because that also, again, relates back to, it's a collagen disorder. It's a collagen issue. She basically, but she did say, she was just like, more than likely that is what this is. She just wants to confirm that it's not, you know, not a more serious version of it. That is where I'm at with that. I thank her profusely for, like, actually listening to me and, like, caring. Bar's real fucking low here, guys. Bar is really fucking low. And I know that I have a couple, that's so weird for me to say, but I have a couple regular viewers that comment pretty regularly that aren't from the US. So, you know, just have to point out and mention the bar's on the fucking floor here. But yeah, that's where I'm at. again, there is no treatment. There is nothing that can be done. If it obviously is one of those more serious variants, which I genuinely don't think is the case, but if it is one of those more serious variants, then there are some treatments that can be done to prevent those more serious things from happening. It's usually heart and lung issues, like the connective tissue like in your heart and stuff can be affected. She even asked me too, because there's a lot of things that are comorbid with EDS that typically like stomach issues, anxiety and depression, stuff like that. And she was just like, you know, based on also like your comorbidities, like you definitely fall into this category. But again, there is no treatment for it. The only thing that can be done is physical therapy. So when we were discussing all of this stuff, she goes, she was like, if you would like, I can already like now technically before I've even seen her, before I've even genetically tested for it, anything. She was like, if you want, I can put in a referral for you for physical therapy right now. And I was like, absolutely, please do that. That's pretty much where that is. It feels weird. And like, I don't want to 100% bank on it, because obviously she still needs to physically see me and she still needs to do the genetic testing and stuff like that. Like I'm not, you know, it's not 100% beyond a shadow of a doubt confirmed, but personally I feel as though it is confirmed enough for me to comfortably be like, yeah, this is, just to like start to come to terms with it. But it's interesting. It's interesting to kind of reflect on things that I've had happen to my body or with my body throughout my life, and like start to reflect on like, oh, that's probably why. So I mentioned when I was earlier in my story about a part of that original doctor's appointment that I had that was going to be relevant to another story. That I kind of wanted to just talk about and chat about, and I guess vent about, even though I've vented to like multiple people already. But sometimes it's just really nice to just vent into a camera lens and then just like put it out there, you know? So referring back to when the doctor looked at me and she was like, how is your eating? Okay. So with the medical group that I have, I can see a good portion of my chart. Basically, every doctor's appointment that I have, I can see all of the notes that they enter into my chart. They send you this little like after visit summary of like things that you need to do on your own, all this stuff. It's great. It's great. I love it. I love being able to reflect back and look and like, you know, if there was something I talked about in therapy, or like with my dietitian or with a doctor or whatever, I can look back and be like, oh yeah, that was that thing, you know? When I was starting to kind of investigate like what was going on with that referral and everything like that, I went back and I looked at my notes for that doctor's appointment. And at the very bottom of the chart, they will, you know, they're required to list like how the patient was dressed, how the patient presents themselves, you know, were they mentally functioning, you know, all the standard like how do they look, how do they sound, how do they act, kind of just, you know, are they good kind of thing. And that's at the bottom of every single chart. Every single one always is there, right above my list of diagnoses. Was looking back at that one and I scrolled down to the bottom and it was, you know, patient of stable mind of blah 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 blah. And then it said appearance in bold, which has never been bold before. Never honestly been typed in by anyone before. It just said thin. And I was like, you're not wrong, but you didn't need to be so aggressive about it. And then it got me thinking, and I was like, out of all of the doctors that I have seen, you know, therapists, psychiatrists, you know, doctors that I had years ago, stuff like that, as far back as my chart will go with Kaiser, which is about, I think, 4 years now, 4 or 5 years now. I was like, never seen that. Never ever seen that. And I was curious. So I started scrolling back. I'm gonna let this dry and I'm gonna gather all the rest of the stuff that I need because I guess I'm just gonna do all of my makeup with you guys on camera. I'll be right back. Anyways, so I proceed to scroll back on my chart. And I happen to come across the charting from an appointment that I had with the very first psychiatrist that I ever had. And that was actually, just reading through it was actually what triggered me to write down what I wanted to talk about in today's video. But then all this other stuff happened, so that became the majority of the video. I wanted to talk about an experience that I had with one of the worst mental health professionals I have ever come across. Literally ever. So this was prior to my, honestly prior to any of the diagnosis. At this point, I had started to get the ball rolling regarding my just issues. I was just, you know, in regards to how I felt about eating certain foods. And I had had a therapist in the past that had said, like, it sounds like you just have a preference. And I was like, no, it doesn't. And so I never went back to her again. But that's not who I wanted to talk about today. This is very hard to do while I'm talking. I had kind of stopped going to therapy for a little while. And then I was noticing that my mental health and my eating issues were getting worse. And I could tell even back then that my eating issues, my struggle to eat certain foods was definitely mental health related. I could tell that. So I had a therapist who had kind of passively mentioned, like, hey, I would like to refer you out to a psychiatrist to maybe discuss treatment for, or like a medication for my anxiety that I was having at the time. So I had this appointment. This is so fucking hard to do. Jesus. So I had, I got the referral for that psychiatrist, and this was in, I want to say July of 2021. Okay, so it's been over a year now. We've made some advancements in my treatment in over a year. Sorry, I could tell that I wasn't going to be able to do that and talk at the same time. There was no fucking shot. Anyways, so I have this appointment with the psychiatrist, right? And it was a video appointment. And now, mind you, you could see for probably about here up on me. So, you know, my chest and my shoulders and my neck and my head. Not, you know, you could not see the rest of my body. And I just want to point out again, I was referred into this for anxiety medication. Whether that was going to be, you know, SSRIs or whatever, I don't know. Was referred in for potentially anxiety medication. So I get into this appointment and where the fuck is my, there it is. Get into this appointment and immediately she's just like going, again, big trigger warning on eating disorders here. Really big trigger warning on eating disorders. She's just like doubling down on this idea that I have an eating disorder and I'm going to refer you out to an eating disorder clinic. Like, you need to be with an eating disorder therapist and you need to this and you need to that and you're way too thin and this and that and this and that. And I'm like, I've always been like this. If I could gain weight, I would. Like, if I could, I would. Honestly, genuinely, that's how I feel. That's how I've always felt. So, and I keep saying this to her over and over again, like, it's not that. It's not that. I get that there's probably some people in ED treatment that will probably say those same things that I just said because they're in denial or whatever, or they're lying to avoid treatment. But I was actually talking to my dietitian about this last appointment that I had with her, and she was like, if you ask the right questions, you can always get it out of them. So she was like super hyper focused on this, right? Also, then at one point is just like, are you taking birth control? And I was like, no, I'm not. And she was like, well, what are you doing to prevent pregnancy? And I was like, why is this your business? Like, why are you asking me these questions? And I was just like, yo, listen, like, I'm not gonna lay out my fucking sex life for you. We do what we do to prevent pregnancy, and that's that. Like, I'm gonna be honest with you, I've been off the pill since the beginning of 2019. I've had a couple appointments with some OBs. Ship's fucking sailed there, my dude. Like, it's not happening. And if it does happen, it's not going to result in an actual pregnancy for me, you know? And she just kept going, well, you need to be on birth control, you need this. And I even said to her at one point, I was just like, if you think that my mental health is bad right now, you should have seen me on the pill. The whole reason I got off of it was because I was having monthly, like every month, I would have panic attacks for a week straight. It wasn't happening, okay? I was not getting back on the pill, no matter fucking what. Like, not fucking happening. She was like going off about this, right? And those are the two main things from the actual appointment themselves that like stick out to me as like, oh, like, you know, weird. But a couple weeks ago when I was scrolling through my chart, and I happened across that chart, and I was like, if anyone was going to put in there like thin, just punch it in there, right? It would have been this bitch. And I was reading about it, and once again, I fucking cried. Because in the chart, it was all there. Patient expresses discomfort while eating meat. Patient reports constantly washing hands because they feel dirty. Patient reports being unable to cook sometimes because she fears the food being contaminated. It's right fucking there in front of your face. Right fucking there. And at no point was she was like, have you considered that maybe you have OCD? No, it was all fucking right there. Patient reports only having safe foods. There's your fucking ARFID diagnosis, which again, I get that ARFID, Avoidant Restrictive Food Intake Disorder, it's a very new diagnosis, a very, very new diagnosis. I get that. Like, not everyone is educated on it, not everyone knows what it is. I fucking get that. But the fucking OCD was right there. Patient reports mom has symptoms of OCD. Right fucking there. It pissed me off and it made me fucking cry because I was just like, it was there. I was overlooked for another 6 to 7 months where it just progressively kept getting worse because people didn't want to fucking listen, or they didn't care enough, or they were too hyper focused on the things that they perceived to be wrong, that they didn't listen to what I was actually fucking saying to recognize what was actually fucking wrong. Because context fucking clues would have said, oh, she has OCD, that OCD is making her scared to eat certain foods, hence the fucking eating disorder. Now, to be fair, at that point in time, I was still very much against the label and the idea of an eating disorder. Now, that psychiatrist played a very big role in that because she gave it a bad connotation. She made it feel like a dirty thing. She made it feel dirty and bad. It's not good. Obviously, please don't have an eating disorder. It's not good. I'm not advocating eating disorders. Please do not misconstrue my words here. But she made it feel dirty, and she made you feel dirty because that might be what's happening, you know? She didn't make you feel safe or like she was willing to help or, you know, whatever. She just she made me feel inferior because of it. So, I mean, I'll give the fucking bitch a credit, a singular fucking credit, that I did follow through with her eating disorder recommendation, mostly because my therapist at the time, got wind of it and she was like, yeah, you should probably, you know, investigate that. I did, just to appease her, I did follow through on the eating disorder therapist, which that's how I ended up with my eating disorder therapist, and that's how I ended up with my wonderful dietitian who I love with all of my heart, and I love them both so much. And my eating disorder therapist was the one that was just like, you have OCD. So if I hadn't, you know, everything happens for a reason, I fucking guess. But it took me a long time to like wrap my head around the eating disorder part. Once it was explained to me in the context of like ARFID and everything like that, it was fine. Like I didn't struggle with that, but like that original like fighting with the intake eating disorder therapist lady, because I had 2 intake like people that I had to do appointments with, but trying to explain to both of them like, this is not body dysmorphic. I do not have an issue with how my body looks, aside from maybe wishing that it could gain some weight. Once I actually got to my actual eating disorder therapist and I had her and, you know, we got to actually discuss those things together, then it stopped being like a weird thing for me. But yeah, the fucking audacity of that bitch though, to be like, you need to be on birth control. Also the irony, just want to point out as well, the irony is not irony. It's not irony at all, because it's not a good thing. But if I had listened to her, not about the birth control, but if I had listened to her in regards to the medications that she wanted to put me on, I could quite possibly be dead. The antidepressant that she wanted to put me on is like currently having like multiple lawsuits against it because of its side effects. Okay, that's scary enough as it is. But then I had expressed to her like, hey, yo, like, you know, I'm concerned about certain aspects that these SSRIs can cause, like blah, blah, blah. And she was immediately like, yeah, I'll prescribe you Wellbutrin to go on top of that. Fun fucking fact for you guys. If you have an eating disorder and you take Wellbutrin, it will cause seizures and they can be deadly. So she should have picked a fucking side, honestly. Were you more concerned about my eating disorder? Because then you would have known that you were potentially diagnosing or prescribing me a seizure-inducing medication for me. Alright, and then last but not least, while I put on some lashes and some lipstick, I wanted to answer some questions that I had gotten in a on my last Shop My Stash video from a lovely subscriber. So they had asked me to talk a little bit more about when my panic attacks occur. I haven't had one in a while now. I had one shortly after I was tested negative from COVID. And it was the first night that I was home alone. My husband was at band practice, and it was also the day that we had first gone back to work. And in hindsight, I had pinched a nerve in my neck, or something. I don't know, maybe it's EDS related, who fuck knows. But regardless, there was an issue right in this area right over here, and it caused a referred pain up to like this area of my face. A referred pain and some tingling, and the tingling was what really, really concerned me. I was like literally just sitting on the couch, like just dicking around watching, I think, the fucking Handmaid's Tale or something, and my face started tingling. And you know, of course, I had heard all about, like, you know, the post-COVID things that could happen, like, you know, strokes and blood clots and things like that, and I kind of spiraled. And I was pacing around my house. I was researching a ton, just compulsively, which was also an OCD thing. A lot of it fell into like OCD territory as well. I was feeding into a lot of compulsions with like my researching, reassurance seeking, stuff like that. But I did end up texting my husband, because I knew he was in band practice, just basically being like, hey, when you're done with practice and you're on your way home, can you call me? And while I was waiting for him to call me, I tried to call the nurses clinic for Kaiser. It was like I want to say like a 3-hour wait, and I was like, fuck that, I just, whatever. And so of course there was obviously still some sort of rational part of my brain there that was functioning, because I think, and at least according to my husband, who has had family members who've had strokes and, you know, major medical issues, if it was genuinely, Jesus Christ, so I don't talk while I'm doing this. If it was genuinely like a stroke or something like that, I would have known, and I would have probably called 911. So yeah, I again just kind of kept pacing around my house, and I was like sobbing and all that. My husband ended up calling me. I explained everything to him, and he was like, did you say you're pacing around the house? And I was like, yes. And he was like, if you're pacing around the house, then you're not having a fucking stroke. And I was like, yeah, but what if? And he was like, no, dude, you're fine. He was like, no, dude, you're fine. Like, trust me, I've witnessed people having strokes before. Like, I've been around. You're fine. You're coherent. You're, you know, speaking correctly. Like, you're good. And I kept just being like, well, what if it's like a mild one? What if it's just like a blah, 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 blah. And he was just like, dude, chill. Like, you're fine. If we get home and you're still like really, really concerned, I'll take you to the hospital, but I think that you're fine. And he stayed on the phone with me until he got home. Yeah, I was fine. I was quite literally fine. I was pretty much completely calmed down by the time he got home. And I did make a doctor's appointment after that, just to kind of make sure that everything was fine. But yeah, that was the last panic attack I have. I haven't had, aside from that, the last panic attack I had was in 2019 on the drive home from my best friend's going away party, because she and her husband and my niece, her daughter, was moving across the country, and I had a panic attack about it. I used to, excuse my mess, I used to have them a lot when I was on birth control, particularly towards the end. I was on the pill for, I want to say like 12 years or so. The last year or so was like really not good. I would, you know, you take that little like week break to, you know, have your period and shit like that, and I would, the second the hormones were out of my body, it was panic attack, panic attack, panic attack, like literally back to back to back to back. And then I would start my period and they would kind of taper off, and then I would start taking the pill again. I'd have 2 days of like just severe nausea, and then I'd be fine. And I would have like just like my low level anxiety, which, you know, come to find out was more than likely OCD, but with some, you know, regular generalized anxiety just spiced in there for fun. But yeah, no, that was always just, they would just kind of come, I wouldn't be able to breathe, I would panic, literally, just not be able to breathe, and then just kind of just, they would come and go very quickly. Like, it would just out of nowhere and then gone just as quickly as they came. It was really, really frustrating. And that was the big reason why I got off the pill. Like, my husband and I got married, and we like sat down, and I was just like, I can't do this anymore. Like, I physically cannot, I can't do it. And he agreed with me, and he was like, I hate to see you continue to experience this also, you know, whatever. And he was like, we're married now, if shit happens, shit happens. Well, come to find out, shit ain't happening, but, you know, regardless, I don't want shit to happen anyway. They had also asked how OCD affects my daily life. I still have a really, really hard time eating. I am a lot better than I once was. I'll say that. Just overall, my mental health, my ability to handle the obsessions when they come is I'm a lot better at it. I have gotten used to, I guess would be the right phrase. I have gotten used to dealing with exposures and dealing with issues as they come, just kind of accepting them for what they are, going, this is a great learning experience for me. This is a great time to use the tools that I have been taught through therapy and through, you know, just outside education and research and stuff like that. And then I just kind of get through it and I get done with it. Weirdly enough, I don't know if it's the OCD or if it's the trauma that I've experienced in my life, or if it's, you know, some other mental health issue or what it is. I don't know what it is. My short-term memory is like just fucked. It's just bad, honestly. So I've noticed, and this could also just be a sign of me just getting better at, just better equipped to handle my OCD. A lot of times I'll do things and then not even, like, I'll just forget that I'm supposed to be anxious about it. Like, or I'll forget that, yeah, like I'll forget that I was supposed to be anxious about it. Like I remember one time, a couple months ago, we ordered pizza for delivery and I had cash on me for some random reason. And I had already taken a shower and I was like in like not appropriate clothes to answer the to get the delivery pizza, you know, put it that way. And so I said to my husband, I was like, yo, you gotta get the pizza, man. Like, you gotta, here's the money. And I gave him the cash, and I'm pretty sure I washed my hands afterwards. I typically, like, touching money freaks me out. But, like, he went and gave the pizza man his pizza, brought the pizza to where I was laying in bed, because we were having an in-bed pizza night. And he gave me my share of the food and we proceeded to eat, and I was great and I enjoyed it and I enjoyed every minute of it. And it dawned on me like the next day or like hours later. I was like, oh, he never washed his hands from touching the money after handing me like before handing me my pizza, and I ate it and I was fine and I survived. So yeah, it's just, I think I'm just becoming better equipped to handle it, honestly. Just a lot of little things, just because it comes up every day. It's a daily, multiple times a day occurrence for me. And a lot of times, I would say about 75% of the time, I can just kind of power through, get through with it, move on, be done, go ahead. The other 25% of the time, I will struggle a little bit more. I will, you know, open up a food and then get uncomfortable about it, and I will put that food to the side and not touch it again, or, you know, little things like that. I'll come into a situation where I'm particularly uncomfortable and I'll wash my hands a little bit more, stuff like that. But yeah, overall, I think that I am getting better at handling it. In the ways that it impacts my life, I don't really go out to eat anymore. Our wedding anniversary is, for me, it's next week. It's October 26th. So by the time you guys are seeing this, our wedding anniversary is already over. But I would love to like be able to go out to dinner, go out and do things, you know. But personally, that's just like not in the cards. We went up to the mountains last year for our anniversary for like 2 nights, and it was hard. It was really, really hard. I packed a lot of snacks. I ate those snacks. I tried to get food while we were out and about, and for the most part I couldn't do it. We got some crepes, and those were delightful. It's really weird how like my body will like pick and choose. Even if it's like eating out, for example, like my body will pick and choose what's safe and what's not, just on its own. The second day we were there, I ordered I want to say it was bacon mac and cheese from this place, and I was like, oh yeah, that'll be fine, that'll be great, I'll enjoy that. I took like 1 bite and I was like, I can't do it. So I don't know, it's a work in progress, but it's starting to affect my life less than it usually does. I do still isolate myself off quite a bit, but I think that ever since we got COVID, I've gotten a lot better at getting through that and like going out and stuff. Who's to say how that's gonna change with like the winter and like the more germy season, you know? So yeah, that's gonna wrap up this video. My shop my stashes are always so long, but I thank you again for letting me just vent into the void. Comment down below and share with me a medical story that you have. I'm trying to decide what it is that I'm gonna do about the bitch who decided that she wanted absolutely nothing to do with me. I don't know if I'm gonna proceed on with that or not. I think that I'm going to. I think that I should. I'm gonna wrap this very long video up. Please subscribe if you have not already. It would mean the world to me. Like this video, ring the bell, do all the things. I hope that you guys have an awesome day, and I'll see you guys in my next one. Bye!